and knowing that I will have my own back no matter what, even when I mess up, especially when I mess up, especially when I mess up, especially when I don't get something right, especially when I move too fast and stumble, I will have my own back. It doesn't mean I let myself off the hook. It doesn't mean I don't take accountability. It doesn't mean any of those things, but I will not abandon myself ever again. And that is a freedom that I didn't know existed. And it is a freedom that I want for everybody.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fundraising AI Live. I am joined here by Mallory Erickson. You might have heard of Mallory before because she's putting the whole summit on last year and is assisting this year, heavily behind the scenes and in front of the scenes and everywhere else as well. So welcome to the show, Mallory. Glad you can make it.
Thank you so much. And welcome to my show as well, because this is also going to appear on an episode of What the Fundraising. So welcome, Tim Lockie, to What the Fundraising as well.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be hosting you on your own show. What a great idea. This is fun. Okay, I want to hear about the summit. I want to hear about why you decided, like last year, hey, I'm not busy enough. Why don't I try writing a book, making a kid, and throwing a summit on all at the same time?
Yeah, because I have bad time management skills, partially, and also partially because I care a lot about this. So for those of you who are maybe listening to this for the first time, we have the Fundraising AI Global Summit coming up on October 1st. It is an all-day summit. It is the second annual year of it. So we did it last year at the end of October, a few days, or the day I went into labor with my second daughter, Isla. And I got involved in Fundraising AI really from the beginning too, because I felt like the AI conversation was like happening to us as nonprofit practitioners. And I felt like the tech leaders in the space were moving a mile a minute in both like how they were talking about it and how they were trying to advance usage of it. And while I personally was also very excited about the technology and watching it in my business and seeing what it could do for me personally, I felt for and was witnessing a lot of nonprofit fundraisers being really overwhelmed, not just with the technology, but with the conversation about the technology. And so I kept raising my hand and being like, wait, but what about the nonprofit that this? And what about the nonprofit that needs this? And I voluntold myself into a role helping to lead it. And gosh, I think about what I know about AI now versus what I knew about AI a year ago. And even for me personally, so much of my own kind of growth and learning has been thanks to Fundraising AI and all the amazing folks involved in it. You, Nathan Chappelle, all of our incredible sponsors, the speakers of last year's summit, this year's summit. And I feel like as somebody who spent most of her nonprofit leadership years being very tech averse and tech afraid, to be like leading a technology conference is like wild. But also, I think really important because I feel like if I can figure out a way to learn and understand and be open and curious and figure out like where I dip my toe in, then I want to curate those experiences for everybody. And yeah, so the long-winded way of how once again I have found myself searing the here. And I'm just so excited for October 1st. If you have not signed up, I'm just going to say it now. Anyways, fundraising.ai/summit. Go there while you're listening, pull it up on your phone because it's going to be an incredible day.
It is an incredible day. And some of the speakers, oh my gosh, like
yeah,
absolutely incredible.
He's talking about himself.
No, I'm talking like Seth Godin, for example. So yeah, Floyd Jones, like really excited about who is there. And yes, thanks to the sponsors for stepping up and saying, this is important. We care about this. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about that. I think it's good. Last year was the first one, and I feel like the conversation was just ramping up. 12 months later, I feel like we're in a different spot. But honestly, I have a hard time identifying all the time what is the thread now. And that's even after getting pulled into 3 specific reports that are coming out this season around these issues. And I still have a hard time getting my head around what's changed in the conversation, where it's going. And then AI itself is moving so fast. It's
Mm.
unreal. Where are you in the conversation? How would you describe it? What's changed? What's better?
Gosh, it's like in some ways, it feels like it's really changed. And in other ways, it feels like it really hasn't. And in other ways, I feel like one of the things that's so hard, honestly, about putting together this summit is that I don't know. I'm probably not supposed to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I feel like it's really hard to use like trends language, right? It's what's the trend around like AI and fundraising? It's people are having such wildly different experiences. Are we seeing an increase of adoption in AI? Yes. But does that actually capture the everyday experience of so many nonprofit leaders and fundraisers? No. Part of me resists the trend like reports on AI because I feel like so many people feel left out of that. And then they feel like they're behind. And then their adoption gets harder and harder to get over the action line because they already feel behind. And then they feel like they can't catch up. So, one of the things I just want to say, which is like a very sideways way of answering your question, is that I want everybody who's listening to this who hasn't touched AI or thinks they haven't touched AI, hasn't started entering into this conversation or even feeling open to it. I want you to know that, like, even if zero thing, you are exactly at a great place to come to this summit, to learn, to be open, to be curious. And so I don't want it to be like there has been this year and now we're all light years ahead. So if you didn't get on the first ship, sorry about you, because I just know that there are so many people who didn't get on last year, and that is a-okay. And they were dealing with millions of other things. And today is as good as any day to start to learn.
I love that. I 100% agree. I think the shame around feeling like you're not up to par is hard for everybody in an organization already. And then fundraisers already feel all of this pressure, isolation, the things you and I have talked about in the past. So let's just throw another load on there. So I think you're exactly right. And if they don't make it to the summit, I hope they do, but if they don't, it's still okay. And I feel like it's so important for people to be okay with their journey where it's at. So, yeah, I'm glad that you're saying that. I think that's really important to say. I need to hear that because I forget that because I am on a journey myself of helping people adopt, but I feel like that needs to be the right moment for them. And I appreciate you calling that out, saying that.
I want people to move towards adoption of some type of tool that helps them reduce the burden of work that is falling on them. And so it's not that I am okay with like stagnation. If you know anything about me, you know that is not the case. But to your point, I think shame and guilt and all of those emotions, they don't help us move forward here. And so I just want to figure out a way that we can like lovingly invite people in today, tomorrow, a week from now, whenever, without this sort of like feeling of being late to the party. And I want everyone to feel included in the party and to feel like that is the idea for October 1st, not to give people like FOMO where they feel like guilty if they don't come, but to be like, this is a place for everyone and it's going to be really fun. And we're all going to get curious together and we're all going to learn together. And gosh, I mean, I think for me, especially as a non-techie person, the thing that is so exciting about AI is how user friendly it can be. And like that it's changed my relationship with technology in general. Like I'll say the more comfort I've built using different AI tools, the more I've undone a lot of my limiting beliefs about me even understanding other types of technology. And so that has been a really cool, like unexpected personal development there. But I also think that as nonprofit leaders, we take our responsibility very seriously. And so because AI has this sort of black box element, we don't understand it really well, it's easy to have fear get really grow around the use of it, even over other technologies. And so for that reason, also, I think the fundraising AI framework and space is really important, because what we want to say to people is, here's a safe place for you to learn about this. We're taking care of making sure that the way things are being presented are in a responsible and beneficial way. And so you get to come and not worry about that piece for our time together, and really just get to learn and be curious from folks who are all thinking about it through that lens.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. This isn't so I've always felt like you are good at tech. I keep telling you that. I'm glad to hear, and I'm also not surprised to hear that AI is one of the pieces that's helping you see that, because what happens with AI is that the tool gets out of the way, right?
Mm.
It's weird, but it just disappears into the thing you need. Like, I need an answer to this question. Help me get it. And when you're in a CRM and you're like 15 clicks away, that's really hard to hold on to the question in the abstraction of the clicks. But when
Mm.
you can just ask a question and it gives you the answer, you can you can just use that insight more readily. So I'm really excited about that. I have so much to say about the science of delight and disappointment, and someday I might do that, but not right now, because I think that is actually really important. What's going on inside of us when we have that interaction, and what is it changing for us? So I just want to say thank you for presenting this opportunity. You're not alone, but you do represent a lot of those of us who want to see this move forward, and you've used your platform to find sponsors, to partner with others, and not alone, but to create this community. I'm really grateful to be a part of it. And so thank you for that. It's great to do this work with you. I want to switch gears from AI to a couple of other topics, unless there's more you want to say about AI first.
I'm sure we'll integrate AI into all of our other topics, but I appreciate you saying that. And Nathan Chappell is the original founder behind Fundraising AI, and really deserves so much credit. He did the hard legwork when nobody cared. And so it's easy to see the explosion over the last year and attribute way too much of it to me. But really, I was right moment, right time to offer my support to him. But it is really hard to pull something forward when nobody else pays attention and nobody else cares, which actually is a great segue into talking about the book, because the other arm of my work really felt more like that, screaming about something from the rooftops when nobody cared for a really long time. And so I really want to make sure we don't move on without really showing a lot of gratitude to Nathan.
Yeah, completely agree. I can just imagine the number of icon events that he was at saying, let's do an AI meeting, and 3 or 4 other people showed up, and it's a very different scene now. Yes, completely agree. Okay, What the Fundraising is coming out soon. Is right behind you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so on October 1st, in addition to the Fundraising AI Global Summit, it also happens to be the day my book is released, which you could think was a very strategic marketing plan, but actually was a complete accident with me not really understanding how publishing works. So when they told me that my book was getting released on the 16th, I thought, oh, great, I've spread this out a little bit. I'll deal with the book launch stuff, and then I'll be able to focus on Fundraising AI. What I didn't really realize is that the 16th was the print date, and it takes a certain amount of time for the books to get to distributors and all those things. And so the actual official title release date is October 1st, this sort of hilarious and outrageous coincidence, which makes it a very big day. But yeah, that is coming out. That is the culmination, although that feels way too final for me. It feels like it was an incredibly rigorous process of trying to distill down some of the key learnings and insight from 160 episodes of What the Fundraising, to really put together what I believe to be the most critical components for us to understand about why financial giving to the nonprofit sector is declining, why fundraisers are burning out and leaving the sector in droves, and what we can actually do about it. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done by a million miles, partially because I had a newborn baby while I wrote it, But actually, that kind of created this really sweet little postpartum bubble that I'm sure some people are going to roll their eyes at when they hear. But honestly, it was like I had months without meetings, and it gave me this really quiet time to wrestle with my own thoughts and beliefs and perceptions and opinions and arguments. And I needed that. And I feel like I wrote it with her, which is also this really special thing that we share. And yeah, and now it's here and it feels surreal. And in some ways, it feels like it's weird. I opened the box with my book in it. And here I am. I'm going to cry. I'm just going to cry for the rest of my days, it seems. But I opened it and I had this such a weird moment of it felt so big before I opened the box. Like it just felt so big. And then I opened the box and all of a sudden it felt really small. Not small in what it took for me to create it, but it felt, I don't know, I think there's so much about the book, a book that feels like the end, maybe. And so it feels like this grand finale. And I think like when I opened it, when I saw it in its beginnings. And I was like, this is actually really just the start of something that I want to start a conversation about together. To me, this is the beginning of this is for you. This is for us. Now this is ours. And it's not in my head. It's not in my heart the way that it was before. It's ours. And whatever happens from here is up to us. The way that we, and I mean that everybody listening to this, the way we talk about these things, the light we shed on the truth about this sector and this profession and about ourselves. And it's up to us to bring these conversations out into the light. I'm very vulnerable in the book. I like really bear it all in a lot of ways. And so I really wanted to lead by example there. But then it's like what happens next is for this community to decide. And so that was a really big moment for me and has allowed me to be like, okay, like y'all tell me what's next.
That's beautiful. And thanks for sharing that. I know at points authors can be afraid that when they release their ideas, they don't own them in the same way anymore. And there's a couple of different feels around that. I feel like it's so satisfying because this isn't the first conversation we've had about what happens when your book launches. But this is a new one. This is a new feel from you. And it feels very much like giving something its own life to go on its way. And you get to steward that more than other people in some ways. But it's a collective resource now, right?
Yeah.
I just think that's really, I think that's amazing. I think that's amazing.
And it's similar to FAI. It's interesting. We've had some similar conversations around this, but I spent most of my life really not believing that I was like smart. I had a learning disability, I had an IEP, I had a speech impediment and a reading disability and have ADHD and all these things. And it really wasn't even until college where I, for the first time ever, was like, oh, maybe I'm a little smart. And I don't know, for anybody who's listening to this who maybe never didn't feel smart enough at some point in their life, you find other ways of being in the world, like when you're not going to be the smartest one in the room, right? And one of the skills or one of the things that I became that I love is a connector and a container holder. And I never thought, even when I was leading organizations, I was never the smartest person on my team, ever. I was always hiring people who were smarter than me, better than me, faster than me, like all of the things. And I thought it's my job to create the container for people who are so much smarter than me to do their thing. And I still feel that way. That's what FAI is, right? I am like nowhere near one of the smart. I won't even understand half of the things that are talked about at this summit. It's going to be like, I'll be Googling on the side. I'll be like asking ChatGPT later. I won't know. And I don't need to, because I don't think that I am anywhere near as smart as half of the people there. And not to say that the content is going to be way over people's heads. We really are trying to make it like approachable, but just to say that there's so many, like the book, like so much of the value and the information in the book is from the incredible episodes that I had on What the Fundraising, these brilliant neuroscientists and therapists and community leaders and community-centric fundraising co-founders. And I created the container. And so that has been, and now I have dealt with some of my own issues around thinking I'm smart or not smart or whatever, but even still, I continue to want to be the container. I don't want to be an endpoint. And so that's what I really hope both FAI and the book is like ours. All of it is ours, and we all get to decide what we do with it.
There's so many forms of intelligence. And I'm having this moment because, and I think you know this about me, but other people may not. I didn't know I was smart until I was in my 30s. Literally had to have a counselor tell me, you're smart. And part of the reason you have a hard time with communicating with people is that they don't know what you're talking about because they don't know what you're talking about. And that was really disorienting for me. And so I appreciate that's part of your story as well. The first conversation you and I ever had, you, like within 3 minutes, you told me about how you failed as an executive director. And there's something about your willingness to be real that I feel like is its own form of intelligence, and that is critical to that connecting piece. Now, you are smart. I've hung out with you. You are smart, but you're real as well. And I feel like that is part of what makes What the Fundraising work. I know it's part of what makes the book work, but it comes with a cost to you of really exposing a lot of yourself. How does that feel? How do you deal with that?
Oh, we wanted a behind the scenes. So here we are.
I'm trying so hard not to panic because I'm a dude and there are tears. Like,
Oh, it's okay. I love my good friend Karen Mulvaney. I remember having a conversation with her many years ago now, and she started crying after something I said, and I started to apologize. And she said, I love that I can access my emotions like this. And I feel that way now too. At the time, I was like, make it stop. But now she's taught me so much about what it means to get to experience the world so deeply. I think, like, gosh, it is hard. It's scary. I think one of the things is I feel like as What the Fundraising has gained more attention and my work, or I have, people maybe have different or new perceptions of me, that I'm a thought leader or want to be a talking head or want to be like that. I'm in this for some type of personal visibility or attention. And the thing that people really need to know about me is like how much, I mean, I think I told you this, like my dream job was like being a park ranger. And so honestly, like the cost to me around the vulnerability piece has been that like I do feel like in a lot of ways I leave myself very exposed. And I keep doing it because it creates space for other people to share their own challenges. I know I'm in a place of privilege. I don't have a board looking down at me. I'm not running an organization. I'm not fundraising. Like I have an incredible amount of positional privilege to say whatever I want. And so I feel like for nonprofit leaders who don't feel like they have the agency or space or safety to say what I'm saying out loud, I'm saying it for them because I'm like, maybe that donor can hear one of my What the Fundraising episodes where I'm talking about this, or maybe that CEO will hear some of this. And so for me, it's like everything that I do is to improve the lives of fundraisers, to move more money into this sector. The moment I think my work is not doing that, even if I'm growing in quote unquote popularity, which I could give two shits about, I'm out of here. Like the only reason I am here, the only reason I am doing this is because I want to make things better.
there's so many things to say next on that. That's part of what comes with the territory. And you are different than other people in your ability to accomplish that. And I think that's offer. I know you so well that I understand that is offered as a gift. So I want to say thank you. I'm going to try not to make you cry again,
Oh, it's
but
okay. Here we are.
okay. All right.
I'm like,
I know. It's just for me. I literally do panic with tears, unless you're laughing, because that is great if you're crying because you're laughing. Mallory, you do have a lot of freedom in your life.
hmm.
And I just know from your history that you almost pursued a path where you wouldn't have had the kind of freedom that you have. And a dream changed that. Nope, that's not true. You listened to a dream and acted on it. Are you willing to share that story? That's personal, so if you don't want to, we can cut it, but are you willing to share it?
I am willing to share it. Yeah. So many years ago, I was in a long relationship with somebody I loved very much, but it was not a healthy relationship. And we were on the path to marriage, deep in that path. And there had probably been plenty of signs along the way when I should have gone down a different path, but I didn't because your 20s. I don't know what else to say. And honestly, because I was like disembodied and I just like, I was in many ways like a shell of the version of myself that I am today. Like I was in a performance mode in my life. I was in perfectionism. I was riddled with anxiety of all different types. I was constantly like obsessing and looping over things. And a lot of that was in relationship to this relationship. But basically, I got really sick one day or this week, and I started to have a dream over and over again that this person ended our relationship. And instead of being sad, I turned into a bird and flew away. And on the third day, it's the third morning after this same dream, I like sat up in bed and some part of me finally asked myself, I was like, what is going on? And then I said to myself, do you feel trapped? And it was like every hair on my body stood up. Like it was like I could feel my cells scream, yes. And then I had this moment where I was like, oh, what the fundraising? I was like, okay, I have two choices. I can shove this away, this knowing away, and I can go back down the path of marriage and kids and this timeline, this house we just bought, all of these things, and make everybody happy and keep all my friends and just this dream life that I had curated so what I thought was intentionally. But if I do that, then I will know for the rest of my life that I didn't listen to myself, that I knew something and I ignored it. But only I will know, but I will know for the rest of my life. Or I end the relationship, I say it out loud, I lose all of my money, potentially, all of a big portion of my friends. I make everybody very angry with me. I might miss my window on being able to have kids. Maybe I'll never meet somebody again who's as good as that person, but I will know that I listened to myself, which when you layer the things and I think about it, I'm like, how on earth did I make the decision to blow up my life? But I think like there was this moment of, I don't want to abandon myself anymore. I just don't. And even though everything felt so scary and so hard to do and was unbelievably painful, I listened to myself. And that moment, it changed my life in so many ways. It's interesting you use the word freedom because in many ways, the construct of that relationship would have made me less free, sure. But actually, what was making me less free were the beliefs and thoughts that I was holding about myself that were trapping me in an identity and in a person that wasn't really me. And so it's like the freedom that I feel. It's interesting. Like when you said you have so much freedom now, I'm thinking I'm a mom of two little kids living in the Bay Area, the most expensive place one of the most expensive places in the world. There are so many things about my life that don't lend themselves to tons of freedom. I run my own scaling business, all these things. But yes, inside of me, I feel so free. I say what I want, what I believe. I never compromise that. Doesn't mean I don't tailor messages to people and I don't meet people where they're at or anything like that, but I never abandon myself ever again. And that freedom and knowing that I will have my own back no matter what, even when I mess up, especially when I mess up, especially when I mess up, especially when I don't get something right, especially when I move too fast and stumble, I will have my own back. It doesn't mean I let myself off the hook. It doesn't mean I don't take accountability. It doesn't mean any of those things, but I will not abandon myself ever again. And that is a freedom that I didn't know existed. And it is a freedom that I want for everybody.
That's exactly what I mean when I talk about you being a free person. You're free to be curious in a way that I've almost never met anybody else. You'll ask any question
Mm.
of yourself or others because you're free to ask the questions, right?
Mm.
And you're in alignment with yourself. And it's not a coincidence that a lot of the themes of your book are about alignment and that there's a lot of who you are being exposed in the book because the message doesn't carry without that. And so, yeah, I do feel like you're free to be you and it's come at a high cost and it's worth every penny from my observation of just getting to know you for a couple of years.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And I feel like I've been using this metaphor recently because I feel like now I understand a little bit more when you were asking about the costs. But I think like one of the things that's so important to realize is like there is no change or transformation or growth without cost. Like we don't, like something I've been saying to a lot of people recently is you don't get to keep your caterpillar body and become a butterfly, right? You're not flying anywhere, lady. And so I feel like we want the butterfly wings, but we don't want to give up our caterpillar body. And we don't get that luxury in life. And it is something that I feel like all of us need to. That moment taught me that in a really important way. I think a lot about shedding. I think a lot about the way snakes shed skin layers. I think about that a lot when I think about myself transforming, right? The core of me doesn't change ever. The core of who I am. But absolutely, I shed layers of versions of my business or versions of me as a mom or relationships, like ways growing and shedding and iterating. And all of that requires loss and grief. Gosh, my little Isla is almost turning a year old and I'm a mess. I'm grieving and I'm thinking I want another baby, which like everybody stopped me. Like I can't have another baby, but like it's my grief when I know that. Like it's my grief of this phase of motherhood being over, of this phase of her being over. And yet now I know I get to see her be 2 and 3 and 4. And I just think we need to be more honest with ourselves. And I feel like you address this a lot in your work in different ways of we have to leave certain things behind. And maybe we need to do that in small, safe, micro ways to get more comfortable doing it. But we don't get to like keep it all and transform.
There's a whole conversation we need to have someday about being ADD and staying on message
Mm,
because I feel like there's a weird superpower where if you're ADD, you won't let go of certain messages no matter what happens in life. But on
mm.
any given day, you're like all over the place. Not you, but I. We're
Wait.
all over the place. Whatever. But there's this centeredness to you that I have a hard time imagining wouldn't be there. And it came from this decision that you made that from a dream. I don't know if you realize how weird it is to have a dream, even if it happens 3 times, and to wake up and be like, I don't want to be that bird, so I'm going to just act in mass like that. Lots of us have had warnings, and we do not. Doctors have told us straight up if you don't change your ways, but you have a dream about a bird, and that's enough. I just think that's really interesting.
Okay, wait, can we talk about this for a second? Okay, because here's the thing, and this is so funny that you're bringing this up. So, my very best friend, Lindsay, always jokes that I make quick decisions. And what she means, though, is that the moment I know and I full body know something, I don't mess around, right? Because that is different. A doctor giving you advice, that is not inner knowing, right? Somebody telling you, like, oh, you should care about this thing, or oh, this thing is going to make you blah, blah, blah. Like, none of that is inner knowing. Now, could it be inner knowing? Yes, but it requires us to be in touch with ourselves, to have that conversation with ourselves, for that information to penetrate through whatever sort of external processor we're using. And then we can have inner knowing. But that, like, my decision was not because of a dream. It was because somehow I listened to that dream for long enough that I let myself know. And I let every part of me know. And then I couldn't unsee it. And we all have those things, right? We all have those things where we just can't unsee what we saw, and we'll never be able to look at something the same or whatever. Now, it's true, we can shove that away. We cannot listen to it. We can rationalize our way out of it. Absolutely. But those are the parts of us that I want to see us cultivate more of, because for fundraisers, I always say to them, you have everything you need. A lot of my work is helping peel away the bullshit that you've been told and taught about yourself, about your organization, about fundraising, because you know what to do here. And like, it's true. And most of them don't believe me at first. But all my job is to help them access their inner knowing, which exists for all of us. It is there and available for the taking for all of us. And as I say this, I want to be very clear that it is not an easy road to go there. And it is not a quick road to go there. And what the book does is start to open up some practices for a healthier relationship with yourself, with your nervous system, with your body, that help open up capacity to maybe get a little bit more curious about what inner alignment looks like for you and feels like for you, and then how you can sense when you are really aligned with a funder, or maybe when you're acting out of scarcity mindset, or maybe when you've fallen back into a transactional way of fundraising because the pressure has just gotten too big and you're dysregulated again. And so the purpose of all of it is not that, like, you're going to read the book and all of a sudden you're butterfly, but you're going to start to feel different and see things different. And I also hope that there are things that you'll never be able to look at the same way again, and that the way I wrote them for you allows you a level of inner knowing and recognition and self-love that you can start to prioritize yourself and your wholeness in your path forward.
Do you realize that you're allowing people to let themselves have the level of authority of a medical doctor in the example that you just said? Most people have a source of data trigger in their mind that's a dream. So it doesn't get the same weight as a 12 years of studying medical whatever. And I think that is one of the unique things about you, Mallory, is that you actually have a sense that what happens inside our bodies is just as relevant, if not more relevant, of a data source than other external sources. And I feel like you're going to lend that to a lot of us in your writing and in your work. And it's one of the ways I feel like you are very different, is that you do hold when something, but even if the data source
Mm.
is a dream. And
Mm.
I just don't think you understand that not everybody will do that. And I think people have to be shown that's okay and told that's okay.
For folks who are listening to this, just think about how many times we hear stories, or us ourselves have gone to doctors saying we know something's up, and they were gaslit to believe that it's not. And then turns out later it is. When I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's, from a fertility doctor who wasn't even looking for it. It was after years of going to doctors saying, something is wrong with my hormones. I can feel it. I know. And everybody telling me that the tests didn't show anything. And so I think like we have so much wisdom inside of us. Think about it. Like you're the data guy, like our data is everybody's aggregate. They're not, but our inner data of ourselves, that's just us with no other noise. And we know if we let ourselves, you're right, if we let ourselves. And I think it's really scary because then we can't blame somebody else. It's like, what if that whole situation had turned out very differently and no one else to blame but me? I can't point to anybody giving me that advice. Like I did it all myself. I blew up my own life. But I think part of that inner knowing has to come and be accompanied by an inner belief that you are capable to figure out whatever comes next. Because I think that one of the things that allows me to make bold decisions and maybe leap before I'm ready, or listen to myself and not data, or my personal data, as opposed to looking for data externally, is that I do hold a lot of beliefs about self-efficacy, my ability to successfully figure things out. And that actually, I had self-efficacy way before I had self-confidence. And I think that then has allowed me to, because one of the reasons I think we want outside data is because then that will help us understand how we'll do the thing. Right? If all these people were validating me blowing up my life, then maybe in their validation, they would be telling me, oh, then next you'll do this, and then you'll go on a dating website, and then you'll whatever, right? And it's like being all alone in my own knowing was a black hole that I was jumping into. And all I believed was that I had enough self-efficacy to figure it out, and that having my own back was the main thing that I needed. And so it was like, and it relates so much to everything that we're talking about here, from fundraising to the use of AI, is you don't have to be confident. You don't have to be confident. I talk a lot about courage. You need to be courageous, but also you need to believe in your ability to figure things out and to remind yourself of all the times when you have. If you are a nonprofit leader listening to this podcast, you have figured some serious shit out over the years, okay? And so after this show, I want you to write down 3 things that you didn't know you could do until after you did them. Because I don't know any sector that understands and knows self-efficacy the way that we do inside this sector. And that is one of the core things that I think we need to be more innovative and bold and courageous, and to trust those intuitions inside of us.
I think that's so important, partly because story is a form of information. And I feel like it's the way that we know what we know is through story, and that gives it the context. I feel like part of what you're talking about here is how you find yourself in your own story. And I feel like we leave ourselves out of our own stories too often. And I feel like that is, again, I think that you, from that experience, gained a level of internal alignment that is rare. And so when we're talking about aligned fundraising, I feel like the first alignment is to ourselves and in ourselves. And that is, I think that's your story in such a powerful way. I have a question. If you could say to the Mallory the week before you had that dream or whatever, if you could tell that Mallory anything about what she was going to experience in the next 6 or 9 months, which I'm sure were terrible because nobody else had talked to you about this. And so it did come from you, and you did blow your life up on yourself and had to deal with what came next. What would you tell that Mallory?
In some ways, I don't want to tell her anything because she did it. And she did the hard, brave thing. I think It's interesting. Part of me is there's so many things I would have told Mallory a year before that. There's so many things that there's actually a kind of a coaching trick or tool of printing out an old picture of yourself and putting it on your mirror, like a baby picture, like a little kid picture. And every time you go to look in that mirror, looking at that picture and saying something positive to that version of you. And there's so many things I would say to myself at every other moment to help love myself better and build more confidence. But I want to share the craziest thing, the reason why I'm not going to answer your question, because what I was first going to say was, no, I would say something to her after she did it to congratulate her and tell her. But here's the thing. After I did it, I knew all of a sudden immediately, oh my gosh, all the hairs on my arms are sticking up as I'm saying this. I immediately felt different about myself. I knew I was brave. I knew I was courageous. All of a sudden, it was like this identity shift for me. Like I was bold and brave and untethered, and I was free to be myself. And my feelings about myself improved because I was so proud of myself for doing that against all the things. And so I think that's one of the things that's so hard is fear holds us back from taking the exact action that we need to take in order to be less afraid in the world. And it's just so hard to take that first step. And it doesn't always have to be this big. Sometimes it's coming to the Fundraising AI Summit and believing you can learn about AI. It doesn't always have to be this like world life-shifting moments. But like, I think having moments where we watch ourselves be courageous and then we give ourselves the recognition for being courageous, that's how we start to become braver and braver people who get to live in more alignment with ourselves. And 100% to your point, the book kicks off this sort of understanding, this opening of my methodology around what I call alignment fundraising, capital A, capital F. And I say in the book, like, I'm not the only person who talks about alignment. Lots of people talk about alignment. But alignment as a strategy is different than alignment as an intention. And alignment as an intention can only happen when we are aligned with ourselves. So the way I teach alignment fundraising is not just that you write emails to donors that say, I want to see if we have alignment around blank, but it's like, what does it look like to feel and look for and find and activate alignment? And that requires alignment, inner alignment. And that's why in the solution part of the book, the first chapter is about you and your inner alignment, because you can't do the other stuff without it.
This is going to sound like a weird question, but why do you care about fundraisers so much? Like, I'm a tech guy and I ask myself, like, why do I care about tech so much? And I don't. I care about people in tech who are stuck with the tech every day and how I know I can make it better for them. And I feel like that's part of the answer for you. But if you had been like a nurse, would you be like writing a book about nurse? I don't feel like you would. I feel like you care about this in a unique way. Maybe that's the way to say it.
I think there's a few pieces here. One is, I'm getting a little loosey-goosey with how I'm using the word fundraiser. And I want to like backtrack on myself for a second, because I think a lot of people don't identify as fundraisers. And I didn't identify as a fundraiser for a very long time. So I am talking about nonprofit leaders that have some fundraising requirements in their roles. And yes, I do care a lot about them for a few reasons. Like one, like that is my story, right? And so definitely if I think about what are the things I wish I could say to young Mallory or whatever, like so many of them are around the pain that I experienced fundraising. And so part of it is that, and part of it is that I want us to have a healthy nonprofit sector, a healthy, thriving nonprofit sector. And I believe very deeply that the health, wellness, support, enablement of fundraisers is required for that. And I think fundraisers often get siloed, or the fundraising gets siloed as this sort of necessary evil or means to an end, and it gets separated. That's why the subtitle of my book, Embracing and Enabling the People Behind the Purpose, I think we look away from the fundraising, and good fundraising has it at its core, and it has the people doing it at its core and being allowed to be seen and embraced and supported in their wholeness. And so I believe that if we support fundraisers differently, we will move more money into this sector. We will start to see reverses in the declines in giving, financial giving to this sector. And I think we can actually see organizations start to solve the biggest problems of our time. So for me, the fundraisers, the people fundraising are the linchpin of change. And so I want to focus on them.
I love it. I think that makes sense. You're wrong, it's tech, but it makes sense that you would think that. Mallory, thank you for being so open with us in this conversation. Thanks for taking the hits, as it were, to put this book out in the world, to do the kind of work that you're doing. It's inspiring to many of us. We're really grateful for it. What is one thing that you would leave your audience with today about what's coming up next for them?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I think I already shared what I want people to experience from the book, and it's similar to what I want them to experience from FAI. I hope you enjoy both. I hope you have fun. I hope you laugh. I hope you feel seen in the book and at FAI. I hope you feel like you belong. I want you to know that you do. And I want what's coming to be whatever you want to come if you're just a little bit more free.
That's amazing. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks everybody for joining our show. I'm your host, Tim Lockie, and I've been speaking with our guest, Mallory Erickson, on What the Fundraising Podcast.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.